can actually use your 401k and your IRA to make more money investing in real estate than any other avenue. And today, me and my friend Ken are going to talk all about what he does to utilize his 401k and good strategies with his IRA in order to make more money through investing in real estate. Welcome to the podcast again, Ken. We've done this twice now, and we're going to talk about some IRAs, 401ks, how to use it to best invest in real estate. So I'm looking forward to it. How you been?
Yes, I've been doing good. Yes, glad to be here and good to see you again, Tanner.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So yeah, let's start with your journey of kind of how you got into this path of how to utilize IRAs, 401ks to invest in real estate.
Sure. So it started like right out of school. I knew that I wanted to invest and become, financially free and live life on a different term. So I started the easiest way possible for anyone to start investing if they have a company 401k is to invest into that 401k. And so in my 20s, I put away as much as possible, which was, just a couple $100 a month, which seems like a small amount, but then it grows and it keeps going. And I had a very aggressive style and through several market downturns. But the thing that I always
In real estate, first impressions can make or break a deal. Whether you're listing a home for sale or marketing an investment property, having high quality photos are key at grabbing attention. If you want to stand out in the competitive Colorado Springs market, having high quality photos is essential. And Wayne over at Hobbick excels at getting the best possible photos for your property. He is based right here in Colorado Springs and specializes in capturing properties in the best light. If you're ready to take your property photos to the next level, make sure to contact Wayne over at Hobbick and mention you heard about him from Tanner at Red and Joy Real Estate to get 20% off your next shoot. Remember, great photos can make the difference between a quick sale and a stale listing. So make sure to contact Wayne over at Hobbick today.
noticed and that irked me was with the company 401k, you have limited investment choices. So you have mutual funds, and it's just based on the stock. One of the things that I really am passionate about is like financial literacy and teaching, and I always love talking about this with coworkers and who I've worked with over the years. And I remember I had one coworker, he was setting up his 401k, and you have limited options, but you have many options to choose from. And he just kind of leaned over to me and he said, "Which one did you pick?" And it kind of took me back, and I said, "You do realize that you can pick more than one. I mean, I have a portfolio of my stocks. I have like international stocks, I have indexes, and I have bonds, and I have all of these." But he was just like, "Oh, which one should I pick?" And,
Yeah, like you only get one option and that's
yeah,
it.
it's like, no, you can pick all of them if you want, and just put up a certain percentage in each one. But it's one of those things that if you just take some time and get um, the opportunity to learn more about it, and it's not as daunting and as difficult as what you seem. One of the things that I've experienced though is just when you have all of the mutual funds, and there was something about like the limited choices of Wall Street and the whole employer plans and the 401ks that always just irked me, because there's tons of choices in mutual funds, and there's actually more mutual funds than there are stocks that are underlying investments of the mutual funds. So at the end of the day, you're still just invested in stocks. As actually at the time of the recording, we have a big market downturn on today's market, just with the tariffs that are going in and the speculation and the market unrest. So it really doesn't matter what mutual fund you're in; they're all going down, and in all of the stocks. So you think that you're diversified, but you're really not. So, and I guess one of the things that along my journey, so I ended up into somewhat of the middle class trap where I had all of my money in the 401k, and and I at this time I had been exposed to real estate, in all of the advantages of investing in real estate and making that decision. Like, okay, I want to invest in real estate, and that, like, how to do it. And that's one of the mindset changes where you come by and you say, like, not if you can afford it. It's like, how can you afford it? So I had my money, that was all tied up in the 401k, and it was doing, relatively good, but I wanted to use that. So um, I think one tip that I can pass on to uh, younger people that have 401ks, like, if you ever change a job, don't automatically move your old 401k into your new employer plan, because they're more than willing to do that, and they'll say how easy it is, and it's like, great, move your money into here. But once you get your money into your employer's 401k plan, it's tied to your employment, and they have control over it. So I had tried um, many different ways to get the money out, um, and you can't. You're limited on what you can do with it. So the options, and I'd heard of some real estate investors that just liquidated their entire 401k to get their money back, and that involves an early withdrawal penalty of 10%, and then you pay taxes on the rest of that. And then, depending on if you're fortunate enough to have a large 401k, that's taxed as income in that year that it's liquidated. So, so you could potentially bump yourself up into a higher tax bracket and be paying more taxes onto that. So, there was one thing that always stuck with me. It was a quote that I heard a while back, and that is to think of your 401k as a joint savings account between you and the IRS.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yep. Because they're going to collect the taxes on it. It's just how much and when. And then in that joint savings account, that partner that you have, the IRS, gets to decide how much they're going to take out and when they're going to take that out.
Yeah.
So you're kind of stuck in that aspect. But other than working it out with my employer to get fired, and then that's way you can move your funds back, and then you have to work out getting rehired again, back in to get access to it.
Did you get fired and then rehired for the same job in order to do that?
Yeah, so that you'd have to work that out with your employer, but there are cases when people, they leave a company and then they go back after a time, and they still get the vesting in the 401k. But as soon as you end your employment with your employer, you're free to move your money out into an IRA, such as like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, that's not tied to your employer. So that is one thing that I would always recommend doing. The other aspect that I looked at is the 401k loan, to take money out and you can borrow against your 401k, which I had actually done that on a limited basis. And it sounds good, and they'll always say, "Oh, it's really great. You get to borrow money from your 401k, and then you pay yourself interest. So it's usually like 6% interest, and then you pay yourself back." I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." So if you have to pay interest, you can pay it to yourself. But then after you do that, I noticed that so you take money out of your tax deferred account, and then you use it. And then the money that you pay it back is after tax. So you pay from your paycheck, and then so you get taxed on the money, and then you have to pay it back to yourself. So then you put it back into a tax deferred account that grows, and then eventually you're going to take that back out, and then you're going to get taxed again. So it's like, once you start following the workflow and the cash flow, you're like, hey, wait, I'm getting taxed twice on this, so this really isn't that great of an idea either.
Yeah. Okay.
So, let's see. So from
what
there,
did you what did you go from there that you found out did work pretty well for real estate investing.
Yes. So one of the keys once you move from your company 401k, and if you can get it out of there. So at that point, I did have my money into an IRA. So the main difference between a 401k and an IRA is a 401k is tied to your employer, and then an IRA is an individual retirement account. So you can move your money into IRA. So I did that and then moved into just a regular brokerage account for. In my case, it was like TD Ameritrade, which is merged with Charles Schwab. But that allows you, it's still the same tax advantaged and deferred investment, but you have the ability to invest into anything that has a ticker on it, anything that Wall Street has to offer. And then you also have the ability to move that to wherever you are at. So when I got into the actual, the difference between an IRA that you would have at like, say, Charles Schwab, and then a self-directed IRA. The self-directed IRA it's more just like an industry term, but it allows you to invest in alternative assets, and
Mm.
and
So
technically,
that's the one we want.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
where it gets really advantage. And there's basically about 2% of the people have IRAs that are self-directed IRAs that they can invest in alternative assets.
Mm.
And,
Is
and
2% a lot or no?
no, no,
No,
2%
not a lot.
of the entire population has
Okay, so very small, very small.
very small. Yeah. So and the reason that they do, because it's you really need to have a reason um, to do it, such as invest in real estate,
Yeah.
And it's a lot more difficult to do
Uh-huh.
it. Um,
How
but
easy or hard is it to transfer it to the self-directed IRA if you wanted to go down this route?
it's that part is actually pretty easy once you do it. Um, well, I've done it several times, and then um, have a couple of different IRAs that I get back and forth. Um, like if you were to go through the steps, the first part would be to identify a self-directed IRA custodian, and there's several of them out there, and that's basically just as easy as opening up a self-directed account and then filling out some forms, and
Okay.
then
So would a
and
custodian be like a Charles Schwab or a Fidelity type custodian? Is that what you're referring
um,
to? Or is
yeah.
that different?
So they're both custodians, but the
Okay.
difference is, like Charles Schwab or Fidelity, they could allow you to invest in like real estate or alternative assets, syndicates, but they limit it because they're focused on Wall Street and mutual funds, and
Hmm. Got
um,
it. Okay.
that's how their business is.
Hmm.
So you need to get one that will support alternative assets. So at the time, I used uh, Quest Quest Financial was one, or Quest Trust, equity um, equity investments, New View, Inspira are some of them, but it's a specialized type of alternative assets
Hmm.
that would allow that.
Yeah.
Um, so once I made the decision that I was like, okay, I wanted to invest in real estate using my self-directed IRA, that allows that. There was a couple of challenges to doing that outright. So one of them is that you have to get a non-recourse loan to buy real estate. Uh, so the difference between a non-recourse and a regular um, mortgage loan is that the non-recourse loan is that you are not making the loan to you, your 401k and your retirement plan, or your IRA is actually the one that makes the loan. So
Okay.
so that means there's no recourse against you. Like you could not pay it, and
Yeah.
like the only thing that the bank can do is take the underlying property. Um,
Oh, okay. Got it.
so
So this would be more like a partnership type thing. You would have to use it as a partner on a loan, or have it like through an LLC where it's just that account? Is that how it
yes,
would correctly be done? Okay.
yeah. So So there's a couple of different strategies that you can do to overcome that with the non-recourse loan. So if you were to just have like your IRA and then try to do this with yourself as only you, then that's what your option is. You have to get a non-recourse loan,
Got it.
and then they typically have to have like a 30% down. They're higher interest rates, um, and and then so that was one of the challenges that held it back. Um, the other one is that all of your expenses have to come from your IRA. So anything that the house would need, if you bought like a rental property in it, like your utilities, your advertising, repairs, you know how many bills you have to pay for that. Everything would have to come out of your IRA, which gets difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
It might sound like a way of doing that, but then you'd have to deal with a custodian. You have to enter in invoices. You have to get it paid, and then you have to get the vendor paid.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work
Yeah.
to do that.
So what would you say is the ideal way to do that? Is there a better way to do it that way? Or is that just like you kind of got to deal with all those challenges with it in order to make it happen?
There are ways of doing that. So
if you're planning to get photos done on your next listing or rental property, don't forget to reach out to Wayne with Homani to get 20% off your next shoot.
along with that, so a couple of different strategies with the with buying the houses or properties in the IRA. So if you another hindrance of doing this yourself is that you have to act as like the manager of it, but you technically you have to be careful of like a prohibited transaction in your IRA. So if you have something that benefits you directly, or if you're adding value to it, you can't work on your
Okay.
so
You can't be a contractor on the property.
right. You can't go work on the property. You can't paint it. You can't if you're working as a property manager, you can't pay yourself to do that back. So there has to be like an arm's length transaction between you and what's happening for your IRA, because your IRA is your retirement account and it's not you. So that's where it made it very ideal to partner with your IRA. So there's ways that you can partner with the IRA, and then different types of investments that are good for the IRA. So let's see. So for instance, you can invest in what would be called private placement entities, which is essentially an LLC. And then from that LLC, you are a passive partner, or a better put is that your retirement account is a passive partner. So in that, then you need a partner that can operate it and then acts as the manager. So there are some investments that I have where people will find the deal, find the property, and then operate the property, and then we open up an LLC, and the LLC owns the property, and then not me myself, but my IRA is a member of the LLC.
Got it. Okay.
And then
in this case, all like those expenses, utility bills and stuff like that can just be paid through that LLC that you have the operator managing, basically, so you don't have to deal with that on your end with the IRA.
Right. Correct. And that's where it's one of the best fits to do that, because for me, or on being the partner or the equity partner of the IRA, there's also that passivity to it. So because it's an entirely different aspect, if you try to do this yourself, and then like if you open up an LLC and you make yourself the manager and you partner with your LLC, then, or if you partner with your 401k, that would be a prohibited transaction because you're benefit from it yourself. and
Mm-hmm.
then you're also running a business out of your
Mm-hmm.
LLC. So,
Got
in and I'm not sure how many years ago I looked this up, but I heard, but the penalty for committing a prohibited transaction such as that is very severe. In which the year that it was that you encountered a prohibited transaction, your entire 401k or IRA is liquidated,
it. Mm-hmm.
and you pay taxes on that.
Dang.
So, so it could go on for you might get away with it for 10, 20 years with it, and then if they discover like, wait, you did a prohibited transaction back in 10 years
Yeah.
ago, they would take that and you would have to pay taxes on all of
Yeah.
that and like gains, which is an awful tax bill to
Yeah.
to
I
have.
guess could you would it stay with the account? So if you transferred that to something else and it had like not a lot of money in it and you had to pay taxes on that, is that a way to get around it? Not like I'm trying to do this or anything. I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
No, that's yeah, there's no way. Actually, there is actually a law or written into the statutes that if you do something that you know is prohibited, and then you do it like you can't like buy or sell it directly to you, but like
Yeah.
if you have a third party in there and say, well, if you sell it to party B and then that party B sells it to me, even though that one's not a prohibited transaction, like if you intentionally circumvent the prohibited transaction,
Yeah.
then it's like it's still a prohibited transaction.
Hmm.
So yeah, they're pretty crazy about that. And then also that's part of like the custodian's um, advantage of having that with the self-directed IRA is that they go through and they make sure that it's like, okay, you're following all of the regulations, and then them themselves as a IRA company or custodian, they have to report everything to the IRS, and they have their own regulations that they have to follow. And then part of that is that they're ensuring that you're following it as well. So that's one of the advantages of going through that.
Hmm. Got it.
Uh,
And how do the UBIT and UDIFs play into all of this?
okay, so let me see a good way
Is that
of.
a is that a huge like different section within all of this?
No, it's
No?
actually so it's related to um, one of the challenges of investing into real estate using your IRA. So basically, you have the non-recourse loan. You have the ability or the expenses, and then you've got to steer clear of prohibited transaction. And then if that hasn't dissuaded you yet, and you still want to buy a house um, or property in your IRA, then a UBIT tax is basically an unrelated business income tax. And what it is it's meant to prevent tax exempt businesses or tax exempt like your IRA from doing business and competing unfairly with taxable organizations. So the intent is to stop you from operating a business in your
Yeah.
IRA.
Okay.
So what that is when your LLC or when your IRA owns investment property and you use leverage on it, that's when it comes in. So you're getting a bank loan or the non-recourse loan on this. And what it does is it's a subset where it's the UDFI, so it's unrelated debt finance income. So typically, so a non-recourse loan, you're able to have like up to a 70% LTV
Hmm.
loan to value.
This would be like a DSCR loan most commonly.
Yeah, it's actually, and there is a little bit a difference between the non-recourse loan and the DSCR loan. So, um, so the non-recourse loan, that would be something that if you want to do this solo and your IRA is going to get the loan, that's the only type of loan that your IRA can get. Um, but a DSCR loan is comparable in a lot of the ways that it has like a 70% loan to value. It has better interest rates than a non-recourse loan. And I've looked this up, and then I've actually even gone down to the had a couple of mortgage brokers. I'm like, hey, since a DSCR loan is so close, I'm like, can you loan that to my IRA? Is it a non-recourse loan? So it incorporates the performance of the property, but it's not a fully non-recourse loan where they'll still come after you personally for that. Because that was one of them, was like, wow, if I could get a DSCR loan in the 401k.
Yeah.
But back to the UBIT tax, what this comes into play is that you will be taxed on, so if you have a 70% loan to value, you will be taxed at 70% of that profit because you're using debt finance leverage within your IRA, which gives you an unfair advantage. And then the UBIT tax also has a pretty high tax bracket where it goes up to 37%, and it does that rather quickly. So in the tax brackets, once you get $12,000 of profit, you're paying a pretty high tax on that. So, and then it kind of goes into that double taxation where if you get taxed, then you put that back into your IRA, and then you get taxed on it again when you put it out. But there are cases that you can do that within a Roth IRA where you just pay the tax and use your Roth IRA because that's tax exempt. And it's just something to understand that, hey, there's an additional tax onto it, but there still are some investments that are still great that you can use your IRA to do that. Because it sounds crazy that your IRA is going to be taxed because it's always so tax advantage. But then when you look at it, like, okay, if you were to buy that same property, like outright with not even considering your IRA, then you're going to be taxed on 100% of the profit, not 70% of profit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way of looking at it. So,
Yeah.
and in the complexity of all of this, there are opportunities because a lot of people will look at that and said, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go down there." So the one, actually, kind of fast forward to a little bit of one exemption to the UBIT that I've encountered and gone through here is there's the self-directed IRAs, and you can have a Roth and you can have an IRA, and then you can actually have an HSA, health savings account, that can do the same thing because it has an investment component to it. So I actually know people that have like mortgage notes in their HSA as investments that just pay on an ongoing basis. But if you can qualify for a solo 401k, that is something that I've just now been able to finagle and qualify for. So the big advantage of that and the big hurdle of that is that you need to qualify and have self-employment and taxable income. So something like a consultant where you have no other employees and you're basically self-employed. So the solo 401k is allowed to just for entrepreneurs, and it can be an single member LLC or even an S corporation, and you pay yourself as a consultant. But that is one of the main advantages is that is exempt from UBIT taxes for basically real estate investing. They're still going to clamp down, like if you're operating a business from your like 401k or IRA, that's not good. So don't do that. But for real estate investing and using leverage in the real estate, and that can be like an LLC that buys the property. It can be syndicates, apartment syndicates, and apartment funds are another great option for the solo 401k.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. So what would you say is your favorite route within the real estate investing through 401ks and IRAs that you would recommend to someone?
Well, the best option that you can have is the solo 401k. Um, and then having gone down the road of regular IRAs and self-directed IRAs, I always thought it was difficult to deal with the company, the self-directed companies, because they're the gatekeeper and they will proofread all of your documents to make sure they're in line, and it's which is good to keep you out of hot water and to make sure everything is great. None of the custodians are ever able to give you actual advice to say, hey, this is a really bad investment. But it's legal. You can make, but they can't give you advice, but they can offer, make sure everything is compliant. But with the solo 401k, you act as both the trustee and the beneficiary. So you're the employer and the employee component of that, which you take the responsibility of keeping all of the plan documents, and then all of the investment side of that, which is added responsibility, and then it's up to you to keep compliant with all of the laws. The advantage of that is that you have a faster process, so you have control of that and speed of investments. So I have just essentially a bank account that's tied to the solo 401k. So I could make a loan to you today, and I could wire you the money if you want it tomorrow, and we could work out some terms and paying back. And so you're able to invest in all the different types of alternative investments. One of the other advantages of the solo 401k is that it has very high contribution limits, because you have yourself, and then you have an employer match of component of that, which is also yourself or your company that you have tied to the 401k. And then you have a Roth component, and you can actually contribute up to $70,000 a year into a solo 401k, which kind of, and then it begs the question of, well, who has an extra $70,000 that they can put and divert? But it allows you to have a lot more control of your income, because instead of, you have to take that as an income and then pay taxes on it. But if you can divert that income into the 401k or the Roth component of that, you don't get a tax advantage for the Roth component, but you can divert that and put it into it, and you can lower your taxes each year. Okay. Or if you need more income, you can increase it.
So basically, at the end of the year, if you're looking like, I know I'm going to owe a bunch of taxes, but you could put a bunch of money into your solo 401k to reduce your taxes that you have to pay, and then still use that money to invest it into real estate or anywhere else to also make money that way, to avoid paying taxes. It's kind of okay. That's great.
Yeah. And then once you work with accountants and to figure that out and saying, hey, here's what we can do with this, and the over time the laws actually changed, and at one point the other IRA strategy that I employ is to try to get as much into my Roth IRA as possible. So over time, I will convert my IRA to my Roth IRA, and it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You can actually convert, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 at a time. But there were at one point in time limitations on how much you could do that. Like, it was like 10, 15 years ago. And I actually had where I converted too much and I put myself over the income limit. And then I disqualified myself from investing into the Roth IRA.
Who's saying?
So, and then I was like, actually towards the end of the year, and I was like, okay, I can't make any more money this year. Yeah. Now what do I do? I can't take all this time off.
Yeah.
And then in that time I had to do like a recharacterization, take the money back out of the Roth, put it back into the IRA. And then the IRS wants to know, like, well, what did you invest in during that time that
Yeah.
it was in the Roth, and make sure that you didn't make any profit on that, and you'll have to pay taxes on that and convert. And it was a big mess, but
Yeah.
they've simplified that portion that you can take a portion of your IRA and convert it to the Roth. The catch is that you're signing up to pay more taxes in the year that you convert that. So
Yeah.
that's the hard part to do, is like, yeah, I want to pay more taxes this year, so I'm going to convert like another $10,000 or $20,000 into my Roth account. But I've run some of the rules in the spreadsheets, and it, especially if you're much younger, where you can have that money in your Roth IRA for like 30, 20, 30, 40 years. It's literally the difference between paying an extra $10,000 this year and then $800,000 down the road.
Wow.
So because the Roth it's tax free, and it's after tax, and
Yeah.
and it was set up because they knew that, wait, we can't allow people to have it compounding growth without taxes, and that's why they have the limit so low on a Roth is typically like $6,000 to $7,000 a year. So, and then who knows how long that law is going to remain in effect? That until they change it and said, wait, no, people are too prosperous out of this. We have to change this again.
Yeah.
So,
Is there anything else that you think would be helpful for anyone that's looking to utilize these IRAs and 401ks to either do investing or investing in real estate?
yeah, one of the other largest hurdle about not doing a self-directed IRA is what do you invest in? So, and there's different types of investing that you can do. So most common is real estate, or I would even say the most common is syndicates. Is something that you just can't have off of your regular Fidelity or Schwab brokerage. But that is one that is a very conducive for self-directed IRA investing, because it's a passive investment. So once you sign the private placement memorandum and invest in it, then you're completely passive, and you have no control whatsoever. And they're very long, sometimes 3 to 5 years, and they can be even stretched out longer depending on the market conditions that we're currently in. Another great option is private lending from your self-directed IRA. The only stipulation is that you can't lend to anyone in your family linearly, so like your parents or your kids, but others you can, and that's also a great way. And then the other area that I did invest in was mortgage notes. So, and that was an area that is very very conducive for IRA investing, because that one, depending on how you do it, is not entirely passive, but it's if you buy a performing mortgage note, it's very or not quite 100% passive like a syndicate,
Yeah.
but you can have a mortgage note within your IRA. And then you have servicers that act basically similarly to like a property manager, that handle all of the correspondence and the accounting and the regulations, and collect the payments from the borrowers, and then send the proceeds to your IRA on a monthly. So I have some of those that are in the self-directed IRA, and I actually look at those more like a bond, because they're a mortgage note, and they're based on the payment schedule and amortized over 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was, that could actually be a whole nother topic of another day.
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. Well, yeah, I definitely learned a ton about Roths and IRAs, 401ks, and how to best utilize it for real estate investing and to avoid paying taxes too. It seems like a great strategy to utilize that and still invest in the long term. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah. Hope it helps your listeners.
Yeah, definitely. And You have so much knowledge. We'll have to get you on a third time now to talk more about everything else you got going on.
Oh yeah, because um, there's some crazy stories that go on in the note investing world that are just
Yeah.
like, really?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate it.